Ever felt like you're being watched? With only 1% of the world's population, Britain is home to an astounding 20% of the world's CCTV cameras. Exactly how many watch UK streets is hard to say, but reports suggest that it could be as many as 1 for every 14 people. When George Orwell penned his famous novel 1984, even he couldn't have predicted the extent to which his words would ring true in the 21st century. And yet here in the heart of London, where the author once lived, there are more than 10,500 digital eyes spying on its citizens, and that's just the ones funded by the Home Office. In reality, there are probably more than 1 million cameras watching these streets. Some $300 million of public funds has been spent on CCTV in London over the last decade, that figure rising to nearly $800 million across the UK. But according to an internal police report released last year, the technology is failing to have a significant impact, with only 1 crime detected each year per 1,000 cameras, amounting to what some say is an almost criminal waste of public money.
Of course, a massive amount of money has been wasted on CCTV. At least £500 million of public money. Now, what would have happened if you'd used that £500 million to do something that actually does work? For instance, street lighting costs a fraction of the cost. We know it has much better results.
The Home Office has actually carried out studies of its own which show that after the first few months, CCTV ceases to have any effect, doesn't deter crime at all, and for a very good reason. The criminals actually know, nobody ever looks at it.
In fact, even Scotland Yard officials are prepared to admit this. They just don't have the manpower to sift through all the footage, and even when they do, it's often not of a high enough quality to assist in a conviction.
I don't mind footage being simply recorded if it's used when it does catch a crime. And that can happen too. And the trouble is that what you tend to find is it's either broken down or the footage is not there. I mean, the most outrageous case of this was a very, very famous shooting of Jean-Charles de Menezes in the Stockwell tube shooting, and none of the footage on the train, on the platform or on the bus was actually available. Now, you've got to make sure that if you're going to have these things, they are available, can be used, so when you do have a crime, you can catch somebody for it.
UK web startup Internet Eyes is trying to rectify this problem by setting up a system whereby members of the public can log into random camera feeds from the comfort of their own homes, gaining a cash reward if they alert the camera's owner to a crime in progress. While a good idea in theory, the business model has to be very carefully constructed to overcome the objections being put forward by the ICO, and at this time they're unable to comment about the status of the project. The debate blew up again this year when it was revealed that councils are using number plate recognition to issue so-called ghost parking tickets without the need for parking wardens to be out on the streets.
The Data Protection Act actually rules absolutely against automated enforcement. So if there's only a computer and a camera to issue the tickets, that would be illegal.
But what you tend to find, and we've actually found it with individual authorities, they hire a firm to run the thing, and very quickly, instead of pointing at the cash machine to reduce crime, they point it at the parking areas to increase revenues.
Aside from the financial issues and incentives, human rights campaigners say the cameras are simply an invasion of Londoners' privacy, and there are big questions around their regulation.
That's one of our major concerns with CCTV, is that it's not properly regulated. We've got some limited legislation that governs how some of the images are to be stored, but there's not really any legislation governing where CCTV is to be placed, who's to operate it. There's only voluntary codes of conduct.
But the weight of public opinion is behind surveillance. While the Home Office weren't available to be interviewed on camera, somewhat ironic given the number of cameras they point at us, they issued a statement which said 80% of people support the use of CCTV and that they believe it's a crucial crime-fighting tool.
I think that generally organisations like ourselves at TfL use it very effectively, and we publicise very well how we use it. I mean, we're very conscious of data protection. We're very conscious of civil liberties, but we ensure we use them in the right way for the right reasons. The other thing is that you'll find that CCTV footage is very effective for both detecting and convicting people of crime.
Although, according to some, quite clearly not a deterrent.
Of course, the stupidness of that is that if you've got a camera showing a crime being committed, I would say that shows CCTV doesn't work. but somehow the public believe it shows it does.